Mark raced through the narrow corridor of the charcoal gray mining station shipyard, his boots pounding against the metal grating as alarms echoed through the hallways. He could smell burning oil and hear distant screeches of bent metal. But he kept his eyes locked on the small emergency shuttle that hung at the edge of the docking bay. Its hull torn and smoking, with a surge of skill born from years of piloting rusting freighters through asteroid fields. Mark guided his battered rescue ship alongside the crippled shuttle, matching its tilt and speed with uncanny precision. He eased his craft closer until a thick cable snaked from his ship to the disabled vessel, its mechanism locking with a satisfying click that vibrated through the control sticks beneath his hands as he prepared to haul the shuttle away from danger. Bright white beams sliced through the dark void outside the hangar viewport, and a towering vessel materialized from invisibility. The massive alien warship loomed overhead, its surface alive with pulsating crimson lights that flickered like angry eyes. Mark froze, heart hammering, but his hand stayed steady on the controls. He fired the thrusters to break the connection with the shuttle, sending it tumbling to safety, then punched the ignition to pull his rescue ship back into the shadows of the station. A low rumble vibrated through the floor, and Mark knew that the alien vessel was not there by accident. He had heard the stories of the Huntress Kira, the savage warrior from the distant Thruxian clans, who traveled the stars to harvest the finest human genes and skills for her own people's breeding programs. Mark's chest tightened as he realized that the Huntress was here to claim him, a skilled human whose agility and quick thinking could yield priceless rewards for her empire. He ripped off his helmet to shout into the comms, but static and alien language bounced back at him with mocking clarity. Without waiting, Mark flipped switches to engage the station's emergency defenses, activating smoke screens and magnetic pulse barriers that jammed sensors and stopped shuttle launches. He sprinted back toward the station control room, weaving through twisted pipes and broken lights, every step reminding him of the danger that lurked above. Inside the control room, Engineer Lily stood beside the main console, her face pale yet determined. She slapped toggles to secure bulkheads and seal airlocks, her nimble fingers a blur over the glowing interface. When she saw Mark burst through the door, sweat tracing lines down his dust-covered face, she blinked and nodded. Understanding the gravity of the moment, they worked in silence as the station quivered, each tremor heralding the alien ship's slow descent into the docking bay. Deafening clang rocked the room as the alien vessel collided with the station's shield generator, sending sparks flying and circuitry exploding in fiery showers. The lights flickered, and for a heartbeat, everything went dark. Mark grabbed Lily's hand, guiding her through the gloom toward the emergency exit. He yanked open the hatch and they raced into a side tunnel where dim emergency lamps cast long shadows on the scratched walls. They ran until they reached the old freight elevator, its rusted doors hanging open. Mark hit the call button and Lily held her breath as the elevator descended with a groan, carrying them away from the heart of the station. When the doors slid open, they stepped out into the lower maintenance decks, where ductwork snaked overhead and old service bots lay motionless on the floor. Mark pressed a finger to his lips, signaling Lily to be quiet, and led her toward an access hatch marked with faded red letters. He pried it open, and they dropped into a narrow crawl space, skirting the edges of the maintenance tunnels like ghosts in the dark above them. Distant footsteps echoed, heavy and purposeful, as if something large moved through the corridors hunting its prey. Mark's skin crawled with adrenaline, but his mind stayed cool as he navigated the twists and turns of the service maze. He trusted the station schematics that he had memorized years ago, guiding him to a maintenance lift that led to the shipyard floor. They emerged near the back of the hangar, where crates of mining ore were stacked in precarious piles. Mark scanned the area, spotting a rusted transport cart on old tracks that led to an abandoned shuttle bay. "This way," he whispered to Lily, and she nodded. Following close behind, they climbed into the cargo hold of the cart, and Mark threw a lever to send it rolling. The cart rattled through the tunnels, its wheels screeching on the worn rails above them. The growl of alien engines grew louder as the Huntress's ship tore through the station walls. Sending shards of metal and glass cascading into the void, Mark guided the cart around sharp curves. Racing against time as the rails twisted through maintenance shafts and storage rooms, Lily held on tight. Her knuckles white, but her eyes reflected the same resolve that burned in Mark's heart. Finally, the cart burst onto the shuttle launch platform, where the old abandoned shuttle sat half buried beneath rubble. Mark leaped out, yanking Lily after him, and pried open the shuttle's hatch. He raced inside, planting his boots on the floor as he jammed the ignition panel with a tool. Lily slid into the co-pilot seat, slamming down on the controls to power the engines. The shuttle shuddered to life, its ancient repulsors humming beneath their feet. Mark slapped the manual override switch, cutting in power from an emergency reactor that glowed with blue energy. The shuttle lifted from the platform, its hull scraping against debris as it shot toward the open sky of the station bay above them. Kira's dreadnought burst through the station ceiling, debris exploding into the station's interior like wildfire flares erupted from the dreadnought's turrets. Aiming at the fleeing shuttle, Mark punched the thrusters, sending the shuttle into a steep climb. Dodging falling beams and flashing lights, Lily jammed the launch panel, and emergency doors slid shut behind them, sealing their escape corridor. The shuttle pierced the darkness, leaving the shattered station behind in a trail of smoke outside. Mark guided the shuttle into an asteroid cluster, weaving through giant rocks that blocked the dreadnought's line of sight. He could feel the heat of pursuit, but the asteroid field swallowed the chase as they slipped deeper into the void. Lily exhaled, her body trembling, and Mark offered a small smile, his heart still racing but his mind clear. They had survived the opening hit of the Huntress's assault, but he knew that Kira would not give up so easily as the shuttle drifted through the silent darkness. Mark adjusted his suit collar and looked at Lily. They had moments to rest, but the true hunt was only beginning, and somewhere behind them, the savage alien Huntress plotted her next move, coveting human skill and genes more than ever before. Mark woke with a start in the dim glow of the shuttle cockpit. His breaths came fast as he scanned the dark viewport and saw only the swirling mist of an uncharted nebula. Lily sat beside him, eyes wide yet calm, as she checked the engine gauges on the flickering console. He reached over and silenced her worry with a gentle nod. They had escaped the dreadnought's attack, but now drifted far from known space. Outside, the shuttle hull panels rattled as tiny meteor fragments struck in soft pings. Mark guided the craft through narrow asteroid tunnels, where jagged rocks floated like ghosts. Lily tapped the comm station, searching for any signal that might lead them home. Only static hissed back to them. Mark steadied his grip on the flight yoke, remembering his promise to protect her. She had risked her life to help him. He would return the favor. They slipped past a massive ice chunk that shimmered with blue light. Mark's eyes glowed with awe at the frozen labyrinth stretching before them. Suddenly, an alarm beeped on the console. Lily frowned at the readout and whispered that the shuttle's life support was faltering. They had hours of air, not enough to wander aimlessly. Mark punched a few controls and rerouted power to the environmental systems. They shuddered back to normal. Lily exhaled relief and turned to him with a soft smile. In that moment, their bond grew deeper. Ahead, the drifting carcass of a derelict space station loomed, its hull torn open as if by some great beast. Mark guided the shuttle toward a service dock that hung at the station rim. They docked with a gentle bump and sealed the airlock. Inside, the corridor lights flickered and cables hung like vines from the ceiling. Mark led the way through the silent halls. Lily followed, clutching her toolkit, ready to patch any breach. In the central control area, they found a holographic star map flickering on a console. Mark tapped the display and lines glowed, tracing routes to the nearest inhabited world. He pointed and Lily nodded. They had hope at last, but as they plotted a course, a low metallic groan echoed through the station. The ancient bulkheads creaked and a door slid open down the hallway. They tensed as a pair of glowing eyes appeared in the gloom. A creature unlike any they had seen stood there, tall, its skin mottled silver and green, It spoke in a strange language that vibrated in the air. Mark grasped Lily's arm and whispered that it might be hostile, but the creature raised a slender hand in greeting, and its voice softened through broken phrases and gestures. It revealed that it was a survivor of the station's biogen experiments. It sought refuge and offered to guide them through hidden passages if they would help repair the life support. Mark exchanged a glance with Lily and nodded. They worked together in cramped service shafts, rerouting air ducts and welding fractured pipes under the aliens' guidance. They reached a sealed vault marked with symbols that glowed faintly. Inside lay pods of strange, glowing crystals that powered the station systems. Lily connected her toolkit to a control panel and restored power as the crystals pulsed back to life. Light flooded the corridors, and the station hummed with renewed energy. The alien bowed in gratitude and led them back to the shuttle. Mark and Lily climbed aboard and sealed the airlock. As they prepared to depart, Mark offered a salute to the creature. It returned the gesture and then watched as the shuttle lifted off through the viewport. Mark saw the station fade into the nebula mist. He set the course for home and felt hope rise. In his chest behind them in the darkness, he sensed Kira's presence, once more plotting her next move. Kira's stealth cutter slipped through the nebula haze and closed on Mark's battered shuttle in silence. She had tracked its faint signature across a dozen star systems, and now she moved like a ghost to claim her prize. Inside the cockpit, Mark and Lily charted a safe course back to friendly space. The shuttle shuddered as she sealed off the derelict station behind them. Mark wiped sweat from his brow and smiled at Lily. She returned the grin and tapped a button to power the life support back online. A sudden jolt rattled the entire cabin. Warning lights blinked on the console. Lily's eyes widened as she read the sensors. Outside the viewport, Kira's cutter dropped out of stealth and locked targeting beams on the shuttle hull. Mark cursed under his breath. He hit the manual override and pushed the shuttle into evasive maneuvers. The small craft spun and dipped among floating ice chunks as Lily scrambled to divert power to the shields. A pulse of energy crashed against the hull, and the shields flickered. Metal screeched, and the lights dimmed. Mark gritted his teeth and shoved the thrusters to full. The shuttle tore through the ice field toward a nearby asteroid cave system. Kira cursed in her alien tongue. She pressed a finger to her scanner and dispatched a boarding pod. It shot from the cutter's cargo bay. Like a silver dart. Mark saw the pods approach on the HUD. He grabbed Lily's arm and pointed. She cut the connection to external power and flipped switches that sealed the airlock. The pods slammed into the shuttle's side with a thunderous crash. The hull groaned and cracked. A hatch flew inward. A trio of Thraxian guards in silent armor poured into the cabin with electrostaves raised. Mark shoved Lily behind him and raised his own makeshift baton. He swung at the first guard's staves. Metal met metal and sparks flew. He kicked at the guard's knee joint. The armored figure tumbled backward and hit the floor with a heavy thud. Lily ducked under the second guard's swing and rammed her shoulder into the alien's chest. She pressed a hand to her ear and whispered a plan. Suddenly, the shuttle lurched again, and the hatch behind them slid open wider. Kira strode in with her twin blades drawn. Her dark eyes burned with contempt as she observed Mark and Lily standing their ground. "You are mine now," she said in broken basic. Her voice was both soft and deadly. Mark braced himself. "We won't go with you," he shot back. "We have a right to live free." Kira's lips curled in a savage smile. "Freedom is for the weak." She signaled the guards, and they advanced. Lily hissed, "Follow my lead," and grabbed a loose pipe from the floor. She jabbed at one guard's thigh. He collapsed, screeching as sparks flew from his suit. Mark ducked under the other guard's staff and swept his legs. The alien crashed into the wall and slumped unconscious. Kira watched with narrowed eyes, then flicked a blade and set off a green flare that filled the cabin with strange mist. The haze swirled around Mark and Lily and burned their nostrils. Sedative. Cloud, Kira said. Breathe deep. Mark staggered as his knees gave way. Lily clutched her chest, trembling. The world dimmed, and they slumped to the floor. Kira observed them impassively as their eyes closed. When they awoke, they found themselves in a cold biochamber aboard Kira's mothership. The walls glowed with pulsing tubes of bioluminescent fluid. A wheezing hum filled the air. Lily sat up and rubbed her temples. Mark lay beside her, blinking against the harsh light. They tested their limbs and found no restraint, yet they could not rise. Across the chamber stood Kira. She removed the ceiling cable from her belt and began to write symbols on a glass panel. Through the wall they heard the distant drip of fluid and the soft creak of machinery. Mark rolled onto his side and watched her work. He saw multiple biovats lined up. Each held a suspended form half hidden behind frosted glass. Shadows moved within the tanks as if alive. Kira spoke without turning. These are the bodies I harvest when they fail my tests. She tapped the glass and a figure floated into view. It looked like a human soldier, but its skin was pale, and its limbs ended in twisted shapes. Lily gasped. You kill them? Kira's shoulders rose and fell in a shrug. Weak genes. Useless bodies. She clicked a switch and the tank drained. A hiss and a pop echoed as the body deflated and slid into a disposal chute. Mark gripped Lily's hand. You can test us all you want, he said, voice trembling with anger. But you won't get our genes by killing us. Kira turned and leveled her eyes on him. They gleamed with cold calculation. We will see. She pressed another switch, and vents opened above their heads. A sweet hiss filled the chamber as golden mist poured down. Lily flinched but held her ground. Mark inhaled sharply and felt his limbs grow heavy. The mist slowed his thoughts and dulled his senses. He fought to stay aware. The walls began to pulse with light, and the tanks glowed brighter. From deep inside the mist, he heard a low rumble. Through half-closed eyes he made out movements in the vats. Figures shifted and stirred. One tank cracked, and a jagged fissure ran down the glass. A fluid dripped onto the floor and sizzled. Mark's heart pounded. He looked at Lily and saw her eyes wide with fear. Together they struggled to their feet, gasping. The mist had lifted enough for them to breathe normally again. Kira watched them from the control panel, expression unreadable. She tapped a code and the chamber doors slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Lights flashed red as alarms rang. The sound of cracking glass grew louder. The biovats around them fractured one by one. From each tank spilled a figure covered in shifting scales and writhing tendrils. Their eyes glowed with unnatural light. Lily backed away toward Mark. He raised his arms in a protective stance. The creatures slid from their chambers onto the floor, their claws scraping metal and sparks flying with each step. Kira sighed and snapped her fingers. The ominous shapes paused and turned toward her. She barked an order in Thraxian, and several creatures slithered back into broken tanks, but two emerged fully free. One advanced on Mark with a hiss that sounded like a scream. The other lunged at Lily, its slimy limbs flailing. Mark kicked the creature's head, but its body reformed as if made of living liquid. It shook and sprang back toward him. Lily grabbed a fallen cable and swung it at the other beast. The cable wrapped around its neck and squeezed tight. The creature gurgled and collapsed, its form unraveling into a puddle of glowing goo. Kira drew her blades and leapt forward with fluid grace. She slashed the remaining creature across the torso. Its body split and reformed into two smaller forms that skittered toward her. She leapt again and impaled one through the glass shards of its tank. Mark and Lily watched as the carnage unfolded. Their fear gave way to determination. They edged toward the open doors as the corridor beyond filled with smoke and flashing lights. Kira faced them then, blades dripping with golden ichor. She snapped off a vial from her belt and crushed it underfoot. The floors shifted and a panel rose behind her, revealing an escape lift. Mark grabbed Lily's arm. She nodded, and together they dashed past Kira into the lift. The doors slid shut just as Kira's furious roar echoed through the chamber. They pressed the call button and the lift shot upward. Through the translucent ceiling, they saw the lab's shattered tanks and the hissing fog that swirled among the wreckage. Lily leaned against the wall, panting. Mark pressed a hand to his chest and closed his eyes. Behind them, the alarm lights flashed on the lift's control panel. The doors opened onto the ship's corridor. Kira's pursuit began. Distant footsteps and growls chased them along the halls. Mark grabbed Lily's hand and ran toward the docking bay. The shuttle they had boarded before was gone. Emptiness stretched before them where the craft had sat. He cursed and scanned the corridor for options. A sign pointed to the emergency pods. He pulled Lily toward the pod bay. As they ran, they heard Kira's voice. "You cannot escape me." Mark pushed open the pod bay doors and slipped inside one of the escape capsules. Lily followed and slammed the hatch. He armed the pod's navigation and set the pod to launch. The doors slid shut with a pneumatic hiss. The pod detached and hurtled into space. Through the viewport, they saw the mothership receding behind them. A vortex of debris and smoke trailed its escape path. Mark gripped Lily's hand and whispered, "We survived." She smiled through tears and nodded. But as the pod drifted into the void, they both felt a chill. On the mothership's hull, Kira watched through the pod's departing lane with eyes that burned like embers. Her blades glinted in the red alarm light as she murmured, "This hunt is far from over," edged through the silent void, light years from the Thraxian mothership and the horrors of its biolabs. He gripped Lily's hand as the emergency thrusters fired, sending them on a curved trajectory toward the nearest planet. When the pod's outer shell finally jettisoned, they plunged through the atmosphere of Emerald World Ikara, heat shields glowing as they pierced the swirling green clouds. The pod splashed down in a misty tropical lagoon and skidded onto a sandy shore. Saltwater steam hissed at the scorched hull before they hauled themselves free, coughing in the humid air. Lily wiped her goggles and peered at the jagged peaks rising through the mist. "We need shelter and help," she gasped. Mark scanned the shoreline where phosphorescent algae glowed beneath dark water, and vines draped from ancient ruins half submerged. A stone archway crowned by carved figures beckoned inland. Reluctant but desperate, they staggered toward it. Inside the ruins, they found moss-covered pillars and broken statues of a long-lost civilization. Faded wall murals hinted at rituals of healing and harvest under twin suns. As they ventured deeper, Lily discovered faint footprints pressed into the soft moss. They were too precise to be animal tracks. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the darkness. "Who trespasses on sacred ground?" "Ah!" Figure stepped into a shaft of pale light. She wore woven robes spun from plant fibers and carried a staff topped with a glowing crystal. Her eyes were kind yet wary. Mark straightened and bowed. "We come in peace. We escaped from a warship. We need help." The woman studied them in silence before nodding. "I am Sarah of the Ikaren Guardians. This world welcomes the lost but tests the unworthy." She led them through a corridor carved with glyphs that pulsed faintly as they passed. Lily's wounds and tattered clothes marked her as a survivor. Sarah's gentle touch guided them to a healing pool fed by underground springs. Mark and Lily immersed their bruised bodies in the warm waters as luminescent fish darted around them. The water soothed aches and cleared their minds. As they emerged, Sarah pressed a silver pendant against their chests. A soft hum vibrated through the air. "They are wards of protection," Sarah explained. "They will hide you from Thraxian censors for a time." Mark clenched the small pendant and felt hope stir in his chest. "Thank you," he whispered. At dawn they climbed a winding stone path to Ikara's high plateau, where a hidden settlement perched on sheer cliffs. Simple dwellings of woven wood and stone faced a vast ocean. Karen villagers greeted them with cautious smiles and offered food of fruit and roasted grains. That night, Mark and Lily joined a communal fire circle. Elders sang low hymns to the twin suns that rose and set in vibrant colors. The villagers spoke of harmony with nature and of guests as gifts from the stars. Lily leaned close to Mark. "We can rest here and plan our next move." He nodded but stared at the swirling sky. "We still have to face Kira." Meanwhile, high above the planet's atmosphere, the Thraxian dreadnought loomed like a dark moon. Kira stood on the bridge, her rage barely contained. Her blade hand trembled with obsession. "Bring me their escape pod and the humans inside," she demanded. "No world shall hide them." Below on Akara, Mark and Lily learned Icarin Star. Charts that mapped hidden jump gate relics, built by an extinct galactic league. One relic lay buried beneath a nearby mountain temple. With its power, they could jump beyond Kira's reach. Sarah agreed to guide them, but warned of trials inside. The temple. "Only those of true heart may awaken the relic's power," she said. Together they set out at dawn, Sarah leading them through emerald forests where vines glowed with bioluminescent flowers. Strange birds with silver plumes watched from above. A gentle breeze carried whispers that seemed to encourage their quest. At the mountain's base, they discovered a heavy stone door, etched with symbols of unity and courage. Mark placed both hands on the door's surface, thinking of Lily's unwavering loyalty. The door shuddered and slid open, revealing a chamber carved from solid crystal. Inside, 3 trials awaited. First, a hallway filled with shimmering mirrors that reflected their deepest fears. Lily steadied Mark's shaking courage by reminding him of the lives they had saved. Their resolve shattered the illusions, and the mirrors dissolved into dust. Next, they faced shifting platforms suspended above a chasm. Sarah guided Lily's cautious steps while Mark dove across gaps with agility and faith. When they reached the far ledge, the platform solidified into a walkway of light. The final trial centered on a stone altar, bearing a blank star-shaped recess. Mark and Lily placed the silver pendants there. The relics merged into the centerpiece, and the chamber filled with a warm golden glow. A crystalline gate materialized and pulsed. Sarah smiled with tears in her eyes. "You have proved your worth." Mark and Lily stepped through the gate into a small spherical chamber. At its center hovered a glowing ring of ancient metal covered in runes. He grasped the ring's lower edge and felt energy surge through him. Behind them, Sarah warned, "Each use will call attention across vast distances." Mark met Lily's eyes and nodded. "We must use it now before Kira finds this world." They set coordinates for the stars. Beyond Thraxian space, the ring spun and light enveloped them. Outside the temple, vines trembled, but the world remained still. Soon the ring's portal collapsed, leaving silence and empty air. Sarah watched the skies where distant stars blinked into new positions and vanished. "May the stars guide you," she whispered. Back on the Thraxian bridge, alarms blared as Kira detected the jump gate activation. She roared in fury. "They escape again," she snarled. "But I will hunt them to the ends of the galaxy." On board a passing freighter, Mark and Lily rematerialized in stunned silence as the ring dissolved. Behind them, the cold metal walls and harsh fluorescent lights of their new refuge offered little comfort. Mark hugged Lily tight. "We did it," he gasped. She pressed her forehead to his. "But the hunt is not over." Beyond the freighter's hull, the stars stretched infinitely, and Kira's promise echoed in the void. Mark and Lily huddled in the cramped freighter cabin as the ship droned through empty space. They stared at the faded wall panel where they had drawn a crude map of friendly systems. Their hearts beat fast with hope and dread. Lily rubbed her arm where the vest had cut her skin. "We are safe," she whispered. "At least for now," Mark forced a smile. He checked the freighter's navigation display. "We have enough fuel to reach the colony on Vesta 3. From there we can contact our people." Outside the small viewport, a field of distant stars streaked by as the ship slipped through hyperspace. Mark closed his eyes and pictured home, his sister's smile and the warm light of Earth's sun. A sudden jolt snapped him back. Alarms blared and red lights flashed across the cabin wall. Lily jumped to her feet. "What is it?" Mark dashed to the console. A warning read, "Unauthorized boarding detected." Before he could react, the cabin door hissed open. Kira strode in, her dark armor gleaming in the emergency lights. She held her twin blades at her side, but her posture was tense rather than hostile. Lily spun round. "You found us." Kira's dark eyes locked on Mark. "You cannot hide from me forever," she said in a low voice. Her tone held no anger now, only tired resolve. Mark swallowed. "Why won't you let us live our lives?" She studied him, her expression almost sad. "Your genes and skill can save my people. I must claim them." Lily stepped forward. "We chose to help you back at the station, but you tried to kill us in the biolab." Kira's jaw tightened. "I followed orders, but I learned from you both. You saved lives instead of destroying them." Mark's heart pounded at her words. He saw Kira's armor scarred and her stance weary. She did not look like a savage huntress now, but like a soldier, burdened by duty. Lily held up a hand. "If you truly respect skill, then respect our choice. We do not consent to your program." Kira's eyes fell to Lily's hand. She let her blades rest at her sides. "Then we fight," she said softly. Mark and Lily braced themselves as Kira drew both blades. The freighter shook as its engines roared to life for a docking maneuver. It would land them on Vesta 3 soon. Kira lunged first. Her movements were swift and precise. Mark blocked her strike with a metal pipe he had found in the cabin. The clang rang in the small room. Lily grabbed a heavy toolbox and hurled it at Kira's legs. It struck true and sent the Huntress sliding across the floor. She rolled and rose in a single fluid motion. Mark circled Kira, swinging the pipe in wide arcs. Kira dodged each blow, her blades tracing deadly patterns in the air. Sparks flew when metal met energy above them. The freighter shuddered as the docking clamps locked in place. The cabin fell silent for a heartbeat as the thrusters cut out. Lily slammed a fist against the wall console. She triggered the emergency airlock sequence. The outer door slid open and a rush of cold air gusted in. Kira hesitated at the cabin entrance. She breathed deeply, her blades lowering. "No world is big enough to hide your spirit," she said. Mark froze, pipe raised. He saw the hesitation in her eyes and knew this was his chance. "Then join us," he said. "Help us share our skills by choice, not by force." Kira's blades clattered to the floor. She closed the gap between them without a strike and knelt before the discarded weapons. Mark lowered the pipe. Lily rushed forward and helped Kira to her feet. The Huntress stiffened, then nodded once. Outside on Vesta 3's landing pad, the freighter's hatch opened. Colonists in worksuits crowded the ramp, tools in hand to unload cargo. Their eyes widened at the strange trio, 2 humans and a Thraxian warrior with bloodied armor. Mark cleared his throat. "I am Mark and this is Lily. We bring a message of peace." A weathered man stepped forward. "I'm Joran, the colony leader. You survived a Thraxian huntress?" "That is a story for the ages." Kira bowed her head. "I am Kira. I came to claim these humans, but they showed me mercy. They taught me to honor choice and life." Gasps rippled through the gathered colonists. A woman clutched her child and smiled at Kira. Another man shook his head in wonder. Joran studied Kira for a long moment. Then he reached out his hand. Kira hesitated, then grasped it firmly. Mark and Lily exchanged relieved looks. They had done the impossible, turned an enemy into an ally. Over the following weeks, the colonists welcomed Kira into their community. She traded stories of her home world in exchange for lessons in human culture and ethics. Scientists studied her unique physiology, working only with her consent to learn from her strength and resilience. Mark and Lily trained side by side with Kira, sharing tactics and technology. Together, they built a small academy where volunteers could learn spaceship piloting, engineering, and defensive combat. Kira taught the students honor and respect for life, transforming her people's breeding program into a true collaboration. One evening under twin moons, Lily asked Mark if he ever dreamed of becoming a hero. He shook his head and pointed to Kira. Instructing a group of eager trainees, the real heroes, he said, are those who change hearts. Kira paused her lesson and looked at them. She smiled softly and said, strength without compassion is empty. You taught me that. As the academy's lights glowed against the night sky, Mark, Lily, and Kira stood together on a balcony overlooking the colony. A gentle breeze carried the scent of alien blossoms and campfires. Mark wrapped an arm around Lily and touched Kira's shoulder. We made a new path, he said. Kira nodded. A path of choice. A path of unity. And in that moment, 3 former enemies became allies, forging a new future, one built not on conquest but on trust, respect, and the shared power of human skill and alien wisdom.